Well, I think it's most important to emphasize the church has taken very important institutional steps to deal with the crisis, and they have indeed been very effective. Go back to 2002 when the crisis really broke in the United States. The bishops gathered in Dallas for their spring meeting and put together a series of protocols, now called the Dallas Charter. And it includes reforms that have been massively successful in addressing this problem. So from background checks, careful screening of seminarians, the immediate reporting of accusations, all sorts of practical protocols that have reduced the number of these cases to a trickle. Indeed, there have been lots of cases, and recently in the news they've come forward, but almost all of them are from many, many years ago. So I'm not trying to dial down the importance of this scandal. I mean, I've been very forthright about that, but also to say some of these institutional reforms have been very successful in addressing it. I would say yes to institutional reform, and I'm delighted with the Dallas protocols and what they've accomplished. However, it's never enough to say simply institutional reform, and there I'm very much with Pope Francis, who's been insisting upon this. What's needed is, I think, first of all, a real spiritual renewal of the priesthood. Now, without engaging in blanket condemnations, and I know there are wonderful, good, and even heroic people in the priesthood, but who can deny there's been something like a rot in the priesthood and the episcopacy over these past decades. Even one priest engaged in this behavior, but that so many evidently felt it was somehow okay to engage in this sort of behavior, that so many bishops looked the other way, that didn't take action. There was a rot within the clerical structure. Does there need to be, therefore, a spiritual reform in the spirit of Francis of Assisi and St. Dominic and Peter Damian and Ignatius of Loyola and many others? Yes, I would say. And I say it as someone who was involved for years in seminary work, who was a seminary rector. Institutional protocols, yes, but much more deeply, spiritual renewal, a rededication to the priesthood as a life utterly devoted to Christ. The priest speaks and acts in the very person of Jesus. That's what the priesthood means, that every aspect of our lives belongs to Him. We are, and I like the Spanish word, for priest, is sacerdote, which has the sense of a sacred person, a holy person. A renewal of holiness is key, I think, for the reform of the priesthood. Well, I don't agree with them. I don't think that sort of superficial institutional change within the structure of the priesthood is called for, nor do I think it would be efficacious. What's needed is a return to the roots of the priesthood, a return to its essential nature and structure. It's a renewal of it, not a change of it, I think is the key to this moment. I'm not for a moment denying that as I said, there was a rot in the priesthood and that we should focus on priests and bishops who engaged in misbehavior. I'm not denying that for a second. But I'm also saying priests and bishops come out of Catholic families. They're conditioned by a culture that surrounds them. If we play the game of us against them and good guys, bad guys, I think we won't make progress. We should see that all of us are implicated in the solution. I'll put it that way. So I'm not trying to just cast blame equally to everybody. That's not the case. But are we all implicated in finding a solution? Yes. Is there a need for the laity to be reformed spiritually? I'd say yes. Holy priests come out of a holy laity. A holy priesthood makes the laity holy. There's a symbiosis between priests and lay people. Something I point out in the book, the fact that poll after poll shows that on most major issues, Catholic laity track with the general secular consensus. I think that's a problem. that Catholics don't profile themselves as distinctive over and against the Renyan culture. That, let's face it, 75 to 80% of Catholic laity don't come to Mass anymore on a regular basis. They don't come to what Vatican II called the source and summit of the Christian life. That's a problem. That increasingly Catholic laity are not seeking out marriage in the church, are not seeking baptism for their kids. That's a problem, you know. The holiness of priests will come from the holiness of the laity. The holiness of the laity come from the holiness of the priests. And so this problem we have to address together if we're going to solve it. Well, I think going back to Mass is a good starting point. How about a holy hour dedicated every day to the purification of the church? How about the sanctification of the secular culture, which is what Vatican II called the laity to, that their special arena, the arena of economics and politics and communication and business and finance and education, that's the world that the laity move in. Sanctify it. Don't blend into it and be like everybody else in that sphere, but rather become distinctively Catholic within the secular context. And you'll live up to your calling as Vatican II saw it. I think that's key to the transformation of the culture.